Tonight, Saskatchewan teachers will begin indefinite work to rule starting next week. The humble Broncos bus crash changed his life. Now, 6 years later, Jacob Wasserman has his sights set on the Paralympics. And how a retirement project turned into a tasty part-time job for one Saskatchewan man.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Friday, April 5th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams in for Sam McKeag. Thanks for joining us tonight. Negotiations between the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation and the province have once again collapsed. Now the STF says teachers will work to rule indefinitely starting Monday. The STF says it asked the province for a commitment to continue providing $45 million in classroom support money beyond the end of this fiscal year. But this afternoon, the president of the STF says the province refused.
These actions only provide more evidence that this government doesn't care about resolving negotiations with teachers. They don't want to be held accountable to any of their commitments because they don't care about students or about public education.
The STF says work to rule means teachers will not provide voluntary services such as extracurricular activities. Teachers will also not offer lunch hour supervision. They'll begin their shift 15 minutes before the bell rings and end 15 minutes after the final bell. It will be up to each school board to decide how the job action will affect the school day. The government says it's disappointed to hear about this new job action. Education Minister Jeremy Cockrell says a fair deal for teachers should also be a fair deal for Saskatchewan taxpayers. The Regina Exhibition Association Limited, or REAL, will have to pay millions of dollars back to the Canadian Revenue Agency. This after a CRA audit found it was not eligible for federal wage subsidies during the pandemic. We first told you back in December that the CRA was looking into REAL's use of the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy. It helped pay to keep REAL's facilities open during the pandemic. Now, a note in the agenda for the city's Audit and Finance Committee says REAL, as well as Economic Development Regina, shouldn't have gotten the cash and they need to pay it back. After interest, it totals nearly $9 million. The Audit and Finance Committee meets Tuesday to discuss next steps. A report from Saskatoon Police and that city's fire department is looking at the impact an emergency shelter has had on two West Side neighborhoods. The Saskatoon Tribal Council opened its wellness center in December of 2022. The reports break down police calls to the Fairhaven and Confederation Park neighborhoods. Dan Zakreski brings us that story.
It's all about perception.
The perception, says Mark Arkand, is that this shelter that opened in Fairhaven in 2022 triggered a wave of property damage, vandalism and theft in Fairhaven and nearby Confederation Park. The center became a lightning rod for the issue of homelessness in the city. So much so that a city councillor asked that police and the fire department put together a report breaking down their calls to the neighborhoods. Arkand says the report is more of a validation than a victory.
The stats and the data is showing that it's improving. It's going back to the levels of 2021 when people say there is no crime in these neighborhoods.
Police said that violent crime has fluctuated in the neighborhoods before and after the shelter opened. Property crime was initially up, but has since leveled. At least half the calls fell into the category of social disorder, suspicious people, intoxication, indecent exposure, and disturbances. Arkand says it's significant that the report also looks at crime in other neighborhoods. For instance, he says it shows there was more violent crime in the City Park neighborhood than in Fairhaven.
That tells me, it's not about the homeless people. It's about people not wanting the facility there.
Arkand says the police and fire department reports are important because they reframe the debate around the Emergency Wellness Center. Now, instead of fighting the perception that it's disrupting the neighborhood, people can celebrate its accomplishments and address the problems that are citywide, not restricted to just two neighborhoods. Dan Zakreski, CBC News, Saskatoon.
A coroner's jury is recommending hospital security staff get better training on how to de-escalate situations. This after the death of a sleep clinic patient at the Regina General Hospital. George Meldrum was 46 when he died in 2021. Meldrum had been staying in the sleep clinic when he developed breathing problems. Staff brought him to the emergency department, and at some point security tried to restrain him. Meldrum became unresponsive and later died. The inquest into his death was held last month. The jury also recommended hospital security guards wear body cameras. Youth unemployment in this country remains stubbornly high. Data from Statistics Canada for March shows the jobless rate among 15 to 24-year-olds at more than double the overall figure. A report from RBC says young people are spending more time looking for work. Anis Haidari has the details.
It's a year into the job search for Surya Narashan.
It's been pretty tough because I've applied to sort of like 80 plus jobs, I believe, at this point, and often you don't even hear back.
He says employers want what a recent grad can't give them.
Because tech's had a lot of layoffs, often these new grad and entry-level positions I'm applying for, I'm competing against people who have had years of professional experience.
Tech is just one sector to see job losses last month, but it's happening across the board in some cases.
Younger people are accounting for the bulk of the uptick in job seekers.
Economists point out people aged 15 to 24 haven't seen job gains for more than a year.
The labor market is growing too quickly, and job creation is not keeping up. So it is a bit challenging out there right now for recent graduates.
Higher population without more jobs is part of the issue, but so is an economy that's slowing down. University career centers see it firsthand.
What we've seen is a lot of students expressing more anxiety, a heightened sense of anxiety as a result of the pandemic, but also a lot of the economic conditions that are constantly evolving.
Students are noticing too.
There are all these very qualified young graduates who can't get a job. I do think the university has a lot of good career resources, but there's only so much they can do.
Experts say lower interest rates might trigger relief.
Once firms see that people are spending money again, they're seeing that their profits are improving a little bit. That's when they'll start saying, okay, things are ramping up. Maybe we can add staff to the picture.
But that will take time. No help today.
I want to continue and use those skills I spent hours and hours learning, but eventually I'll just transition to another direction if nothing works out.
For now, the job search continues. Anis Haidari, CBC News, Calgary.
Tomorrow marks 6 years since the Humboldt Broncos bus crash. 16 people died and 13 were seriously injured when a semi drove through a stop sign into the path of the team's bus. Now, 6 years later, a surviving member of that team has qualified for the 2024 Paris Paralympics in rowing. Karen Pauls has more.
Yeah, I've been on a fast track.
The last 6 years have been a blur for 24-year-old Jacob Wasserman, the former starting goaltender for the Humboldt Broncos. He is one of the 13 survivors in the April 2018 crash that left 16 others dead after a semi ran through a stop sign into the path of the team's bus.
How sweet the sound. This tragedy has devastated our families, our Humboldt Broncos organization.
The crash left Wasserman paralyzed from the navel down.
This horrible thing did happen a long time ago, but we got no other choice but to just keep moving forward and keep living life and just making the best out of it.
Wasserman tried sledge hockey and water skiing, but checked out rowing after a friend recommended it.
So I just decided to go and give it a try. And the boat was awkward and kind of weird to figure out at first, but rowing on the river here in Saskatoon was just quite the place to learn.
Last year, Wasserman won gold in the men's PR1 single category in the Canadian Championships. He recently won silver in Brazil. Because of that, Canada earned a spot at the Paris Games, and Wasserman qualified. He isn't on Team Canada yet. The qualifying period isn't quite over, and the team won't be named until June. But
I can say it's very likely that you will see his name on our nomination. He's only spent one season on the water, which is remarkable. I think it's a testament to who he is as an athlete.
Some of his former Broncos teammates aren't surprised.
Double trace that propel Jacob is his ability to bounce back, his work ethic, his determination. Like when he does something, he wants to do it well. He doesn't want to just half do it. He wants to go all in with it. And so to see him do this for rowing and keep on crushing it is super inspiring.
It's incredible what he's been able to do and achieve. He's going to continue reaching all his goals and inspiring others on that journey, and no other person more deserving than him. He works hard for his goals, and I know that me and the boys are going to support him along the entire journey, so very, very proud of him.
Wasserman says he's blown away by all the support.
The Paralympics and the Olympics in general has always been like one of the biggest stages in the world, and it's like, oh, maybe someday we'll get there. So it is really cool that we might be getting closer to that dream that I've had for so long of leave the disability at the dock and I just get to go out and perform and be an athlete and do my thing.
The 2024 Paralympics run from August 28th to September 8th. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, what a difference 24 hours makes. You'll remember yesterday it was gray and dreary in Saskatoon, but today, sunny and clear. Looks like those geese are enjoying the change in scenery too. So are the skies going to stay blue into the weekend and in time for our solar eclipse on Monday? We will check in with weather specialist Riley Lachuk after the break to find out. Stay with us. Welcome back. Well, come Monday, the shadow of the moon is going to sweep over large parts of central and eastern Canada. The rare total solar eclipse will travel over Lake Ontario, southern Quebec, and New Brunswick, and it'll also occur over northwest PEI and central Newfoundland. Now, it'll only be a partial eclipse here in Saskatchewan, but you can still see it, and we caught up with an astronomy professor today to find out how you can safely view the eclipse and why it's happening.
So solar eclipse is when the moon passes directly in between the Earth and the sun. And this doesn't happen every single month because the moon's orbit is tilted slightly. So it only lines up perfectly once in a while. And there will be part of North America where this lines up perfectly and the entire sun will be blocked out by the moon and you'll get a total eclipse. So if you have eclipse glasses, that's the easiest thing, right? So they have special filters on them. You can also use a welding helmet if it's dark enough. It has to be shade 14 or darker, which is pretty dark, even for a welding helmet. But if you don't have that, that's not a problem. You can just poke a hole in a piece of paper and let sunlight shine through it, and the shape of the sun will be projected onto the ground. It's really neat. That's actually my favorite way to view the eclipse because you can watch that geometry change over the course of the eclipse. You can get really creative. You can make, silly patterns on your piece of paper. You can use a colander, right? Anything with small holes will make projections of the shape of the sun, and you get these little crescent suns in neat patterns. So I really enjoy doing that. The next total eclipse that will be visible from anywhere in Saskatchewan is in 2044. So mark your calendars. These don't happen very often. There will be partial eclipses that are visible again, but it's really not very common. So if you can get out and enjoy it on your lunch break.
And we will have local coverage of the eclipse on Monday. You can tune into CBC Radio 1's Blue Sky at noon. That show will also be live streamed on our CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Samantha Lawler will be one of the guests on that broadcast, and we're also going to be hearing from Saskatchewanians who have traveled far and wide to watch from the path of totality. That is Monday at noon on CBC Radio 1 and the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel.
The weather update is brought to you by Capital GMC Buick Cadillac. Customer Appreciation Month is on now.
And weather specialist Riley Lachuk joins us now. And of course, the question everyone wants to know, Riley, is just how much of this eclipse are we going to be able to see?
You know, it really depends on where you'll be in the province, Ethan. We'll get into that. But taking a look here at this solar eclipse here, that path of totality, yes, coming up through Mexico, through the United States, clipping the Greater Toronto area, the Niagara region, through into eastern Canada. So looking at the weather forecast for Monday at 2 o'clock, I say take this with a grain of salt because yes, we're only at Friday and this is still a few days out yet, but looking at that path of totality, yes, we have a fairly good chance of seeing that in the Niagara region and having a sunny sky for that. Better chance of more sunnier conditions to the east. In our neck of the woods, well, southern and southeastern Saskatchewan under a little bit of cloud cover, but yes, we do have Regina here right on the edge by the time we hit that 1 o'clock hour Monday afternoon of a little bit of cloud cover. Saskatoon, a better chance of seeing some cloud cover, but I'm calling it a partly cloudy or a sun cloud mix as we head through the afternoon on Monday. So this gets underway 11:51 in Regina, 11:53 in Saskatoon on Monday morning. Depending on where you are in the province, expecting the sun to be about 35 to 40% blocked out by the moon by the time we hit that maximum partial eclipse at about 10 to 1 and ending by the time we hit, say, 2 o'clock in the afternoon or so, fully wrapped up. And yes, again, really depends on the weather. And if you do get a chance to see it, don't look directly at the sun. Make sure you're doing it safely with eclipse glasses if you can find them, or one of the many safer ways to do it. So, looking at today's weather, yes, we did see a little bit of precipitation traveling through parts of south central and southwestern Saskatchewan. Otherwise, yes, kind of a mix of sun and cloud throughout the day today. A lot less dreary in parts of the province than it was yesterday. But we do still have a little bit of precipitation moving through the extreme northern part of the province from that system that rolled through south and central earlier in the week. So as we head through Saturday, yes, we're expecting a mainly sunny sky. But yes, riding that ridge, we do have some precipitation still moving through extreme southwestern Saskatchewan into southeastern Alberta. This will bring us a little bit of precipitation potentially into the Kindersley, Maple Creek area as we head through the weekend. Chance, I'll say, looking at accumulation as we head through into the later part of Sunday. Yes, most of this into that southwestern corner, about 4 millimeters. Otherwise, barely a trace as we head through south and central parts. But the story on the trade of that will be the wind. So as we look at winds getting into the day on Saturday, yes, we're looking at southeast winds gusting to 40, even 50 in parts of southeastern Saskatchewan. So yes, we're looking at another breezy day throughout the province as we head through the day on Saturday. Calming down, though, as we head into the day on Sunday. So forecast quickly, 14 degrees in Saskatoon, 13s for Regina and Assiniboia. Double digits, yes, as we head through your 7-day forecast. A partly cloudy sky Monday, and a little bit of cloud builds in as we head through the rest of the weekend. Ethan, Saskatoon, yes, looking at a mainly cloudy sky on Monday for that partial eclipse, and double digits stick around, though, into the later part of next week.
Yeah, I can't wait for that eclipse on Monday. Thank you so much, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, Canada's Brad Gushue has clinched a spot in the semifinals at the World Men's Curling Championships in Switzerland. Earlier today, the team from Newfoundland and Labrador had a pair of lopsided wins against Japan and host Switzerland to finish the round robin with a 10-2 record. Team Canada will play either Scotland or the United States, who face off in a qualifying round. Stay with us. We're back after the break. U.S. President Joe Biden got a first-hand look at the collapsed Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore today. He reaffirmed his commitment to the community and pledged the full support of the federal government.
In the weeks to come, I want you to know we're going to continue to have your backs every step of the way. I guarantee you. I guarantee you.
Efforts to clear away the mangled mess of the structure are still underway. Cranes, ships, and diving crews are working to reopen what is one of the nation's main shipping lanes. As much as $200 million U.S. in cargo moves through the port daily. Biden was briefed by local officials, the U.S. Coast Guard, and Army Corps engineers on the situation. And he's meeting with some family members of the victims. 6 construction workers were killed when the bridge was struck by a huge cargo ship on March 26th. A rare earthquake struck parts of the U.S. Northeast this morning. The U.S. Geological Survey says the quake registered a preliminary magnitude of 4.8 and shook buildings from New Jersey to Maine. The epicenter was about 70 kilometers west of New York City, near northern New Jersey. The tremors were felt across several states. People from Baltimore, Philadelphia, and the Massachusetts-New Hampshire border reported feeling the ground shake. Traffic was briefly suspended on some rail lines, and flights were temporarily held at some airports on the eastern seaboard. Thankfully, nothing like that to report here. Riley has a look at our weekend forecast.
Well, thanks, Ethan. If you're looking for another sign that spring has sprung, I've got one for you here. A look at our snow depth map. And yes, much of southern Saskatchewan, it's pretty much all gone. You don't have to go very far north or west, though, to find a little bit of snow. So a little bit of hope if you're looking for a sign of spring. Looking at your forecast for your Saturday, yes, we're looking at a partly cloudy sky by the time we hit the afternoon in Regina, but it will be breezy. So by noon, we're looking at 9 degrees and a high of 12 in the afternoon. Could see some wind gusts up to 60 in parts of southern Saskatchewan tomorrow. So keep that in mind. In Saskatoon, 9 degrees by the time we hit noon. East winds gusting to 30 and a high of 13 tomorrow afternoon. Not as windy through Saskatoon and central parts, Ethan, but certainly a bit gusty into that southeast corner.
Yeah, I'm thankful the wind doesn't affect eclipses all that much.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks so much, Riley.
No problem.
And finally tonight, when you think of retirement, you may picture leisurely days around the house or casual hobbies. But for one retiree from Milestone, retirement is a little busier thanks to his zest for baking. Twice a week, Jim Hadfield drives into Regina to deliver his tasty treats straight to doorsteps of hungry customers. And we tagged along with him this morning.
My name is Jim Hadfield, and I operate Jim's Bread, Buns, and Cakes out of Milestone, Saskatchewan. I started out in the finance field. I was an accountant, and then I moved into management and retired in 2007. I discovered baking in my retirement when I couldn't find a decent loaf of bread. So I decided I was going to teach myself how to bake, and I did. I took some cinnamon buns to an event in Milestone, and a lady from Regina said to me, "You need to go into business." I laughed, but 3 months later I decided to start the business, and it was slow at start, but my cousin developed me a website. Again, business was modest. Then I went on Facebook with a Facebook page, and things took off. They love the baking, they love the fact that it's homemade. And my baking is oversized. Our breads are big. My buns are a little bit bigger than normal. My cinnamon buns are 4 inches square and quite thick. I didn't intend to have another business, but then I thought I would do it for a couple of years, bake, but it developed into something quite large. I still enjoy baking, even at 72, and it provides me with a wee bit of extra income, not a lot, and it also keeps me busy. It is important, I think, for somebody my age to remain active and focused on something, and so this helps with that.
Good for Jim. Now I am very, very hungry. That is it for us this week. You can always subscribe to our YouTube channel or head to our website for more news. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.